Can you hear me? All right. A lot of y'all weren't here yesterday because of band. A lot of y'all might have struggled a little bit yesterday. So this warm-up is a review of what we learned yesterday. We are solving for x, specifically when we have an x squared in our equation. It's a quadratic equation, so that's what we're doing here. The strategy that you're going to use, the method that you're going to use is called the factoring method. You have to factor this right here. We need to rewrite this as its factors to equal 0. So we're going to use Xbox, negative 14 up top, negative 5 down bottom, and negative 7, positive 2. X minus 7, X plus 2. Once you have the factors like this, there is a property we talked about yesterday called the zero product property. The zero product property says if you have two things that multiply to equal 0, then one of those things must be 0. So I know that either this binomial, x minus 7, has to be 0, or this binomial, x plus 2, must be 0. Well, that's where I'm going to get my two solutions from. We're going to have two answers here. In this first case, add 7 to both sides. You're going to get x equals 7. Also, I know that 7 minus 7 is 0, so I know that it has to be 7. Over here, negative 2 plus 2 equals 0, so x equals negative 2. Those are my two answers, 7 and negative 2. You got to have both answers, not just one or the other. This only works when it equals 0. So if you have an equation like this that doesn't equal 0, the first thing we have to do is cancel this out to make it equal 0. Oh, I need that big. So we're going to add 15 to both sides. Let me switch to a new color. So negative 15 plus 15 cancels out, and it equals 0. I have x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Now I can factor and do everything else the way we did on the last problem. The factoring method, x box, 15 up top, 8 down bottom, 3 and 5. So x plus 3 times x plus 5 equals 0. Zero product property says that if these two things multiply to equal 0, if this binomial times this binomial multiply to be 0, then either this, x plus 3, must be 0, or, ignore that, or this, x plus 5, has to be 0. Well, what x makes this 0? Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So negative 3, and then what x makes this 0? Negative 5 plus 5 equals 0. The shortcut, once you'll start to figure it out, you just reverse the signs of these numbers. So negative 3, negative 5. Or these numbers, negative 3, negative 5. Same thing over here. If you look at the shortcut, positive 7 and negative 2. Today's assignment is when it's not plain x and x binomials. So here we increase the difficulty a little bit. Still the same concept, still two things multiplied to equal 0, but we don't have just x and x as the in the beginning of each binomial. I know that one of these binomials has to be 0. Either 3x minus 2 has to be 0, or x plus 1 has to be 0. This is the easy one. Negative 1 plus 1 has to be 0. So x can be negative 1. Or over here, here's where it's a little more, not much, only a little more complicated. We actually have to solve an equation. Add 2 to both sides. 3x equals 2. Divide by 3. And you get x equals 2/3. So here is our solution. X is either 2/3 or negative 1. Same concept here. You have two binomials that multiply to equal 0. I know that that means either 2x plus 5 must be 0. So this binomial could be 0, or this binomial could be 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. This is the easier one because it's just plain x. 4 minus 4 is 0. So there's one solution. This one's a little more complicated. We have to actually solve for x. Minus 5 to both sides. 2x equals negative 5. Divide by 2. X equals either negative 5 over 2 or negative 2.5. There we go. So there's your two answers, 4 or negative 2.5. The only thing that will make it a little more complicated is when it's not already factored for you. These on the last page were easy because it was already factored. It was already in the two binomials like that. Here is a little more complicated because it's not already factored. So we need to actually factor this. Make it look like that. This is the hard type of factoring because of this 2. So 2 times negative 12, we got negative 24, positive 5. That's going to be 8 times negative 3. So 2 changes everything of this process. 2x and 2x plus 8 and minus 3. We put an extra 2 in here. We have to take the extra 2 out from that binomial. X plus 4, 2x minus 3. So we factored. Now we have to actually solve. This is what we just did on the last page. We have it looking like those now. So all we have to do is apply the zero product property that says if this binomial times that binomial equals 0, then either x plus 4 is going to be 0 or 2x minus 3 is going to be 0. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. So x equals negative 4, or add 3 to both sides. That's going to be 2x equals 3. Divide by 2. X equals 3 over 2. Or what is 3 divided by 2? 1.5. So x equals either negative 4 or positive 1.5. One more. Just like on the warm-up, it has to equal 0. We talked about that yesterday. We talked about it a little more earlier. It will not work if it equals negative 2. You have to make that right side be 0. So add 2 to both sides. 10x squared minus 9x plus 2 equals 0. That is my solvable equation because it equals 0. All I need to do now is factor it. So, X box. Do I have space? I'll make space up here. 10 times 2 puts a 20 up top, negative 9 down bottom. Negative 4 times negative 5 gives me the 20 and the negative 9. So 10x minus 4 and 10x minus 5. I put an extra 10 in there. I need to factor an extra 10 out. I can't divide a 10 out of either of these all at once, but I can split the 10 up and do a 2 and a 5. Since 2 times 5 is 10, that'll work. This gives me 5x minus 2, 2x minus 1 equals 0. Then all I need to do is apply the zero product property. That's what we use to actually solve and find x. So I'm going to give myself some space here. 2 binomials multiply to be 0. That means either this binomial or this binomial must be 0. So 5x minus 2 could be 0, or 2x minus 1 could be 0. Solve each of these little equations. These are 6th grade equations. You can solve these Those are going to be our two solutions. Add 2. 5x equals 2. Divide by 5. We get x equals 2/5, which is 0.4. Yep, 0.4. You could do decimal or fraction. Or add 1. 2x equals 1. Divide by 2. X equals 1/2. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. I don't expect you to be great at this, but do the best you can. We'll go over more of it tomorrow when I'm back. Hopefully I'm back tomorrow. Good luck.